What's up, YouTube? I owe you an update, and that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you about today. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the JNCIP content that we've been recording for CBT Nuggets. We're going to talk about what's been released, what's about to be released. Little spoiler, is going to be a little Cisco surprise in there, so you probably want to pay attention. Then I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics that I've been covering a lot recently, and that's going to be EVPN and how it works in coordination with VXLAN as well as MPLS in the different environments. Then I'll wrap up by talking about another little side project that I have going on revolving around the world of cryptocurrency and all the things that I've learned as a miner and an investor in the past few months. So if you're interested in that, stick around till the end. Let's get going. So yet again, I find myself in a situation where I've been just a little delayed in getting you information, getting you updates, and I want to remediate that problem right now and tell you what I've been doing, some of the things that I've been talking about in these videos lately, and then give you a little wrap-up about something interesting, a little side project that I've got going on. Now, CBT Nuggets, let me tell you about this right now. I have not been producing as much content for YouTube as I had hoped in 2021, first of all, because of the babies, but second of all, because CBT Nuggets is having a real drive right now to get content created and released on the website. Our numbers are going through the roof as far as content creation goes, or at least my numbers, I should say, are going through the roof as far as content creation goes, because I really want to put an emphasis on delivering content to the consumers as quickly as possible without making sacrifices. Of course, we don't want to sacrifice our quality and what makes CBT Nuggets CBT Nuggets. But like I said in a previous video, I found that our Juniper content was lacking, and there is a pretty good demand for Juniper content. So I don't want to waste time and not get this content created. I have to use my time as efficiently as possible. That's not to say that this YouTube video is wasting time. Of course it's not. But there are scenarios, there are moments where like, oh, I've got this really cool lab built and I'm in a rhythm, I'm in a groove. I just want to like sit down and get all of this content that's in my brain out into the ether and recorded. That way I can get it uploaded for CBT Nuggets and peer reviewed. And that's really been the drive. It's really been the focus this year. I wanted to get through the I wanted to get associate, specialist, and then professional level of JNCI blank content created. That way people have a real certification track that they can study for. So let's look at the Juniper certification tracks real quick. We can talk about what has been created up until this point. So here we go. I am on the Juniper certification track website. This is what we're going to be checking out. And first of all, let's focus in again on what content has been created for CBT Nuggets. We see JNCIA Junos exists in 3 different places because it is applicable to 3 different certification exams. That is data center, enterprise, and service provider. So that was the first thing we knocked out. I think I knocked it out in October or November of last year. I recerted in it, and it was much more challenging than the JNCIA that I remember of the past. That way I could make, the most up-to-date content as possible. Then we move on to the specialist level as part of the JNCI blank content. And we look at here, we've got, if we're going in the JNCIA Junos path, we see that now we have 2 options. It kind of branches into 2 options here. That's JNCIS Enterprise, which is applicable to data center as well as enterprise. And then we have JNCIS Service Provider. Now, first things first, we need to address some things if you haven't been caught up on all of this Juniper content that I've been creating lately. The JNCIA Junos, whatever comes after this hyphen, that's what the exam is about. So when you see the JNCIA Junos, don't think, oh, this is intro to networking. Wrong. That's kind of what the Network Plus is for. That's kind of what other vendor certifications are for. That's not what the JNCIA Junos is all about. The JNCIA Junos is for someone who's new-ish to networking, but also has a little bit of experience, maybe working on another vendor's platform, and this is just getting them acclimated to the Junos operating system. It's not really until you get to the specialist level that you start doing intermediate networking tasks and learning about protocols and things like that. There is a little bit of like OSPF is on the exam blueprint here, but you're not going to be learning about like switching. You don't learn switching at all until you get to the specialist tiers. Now, enterprises and data centers, they kind of approach switching within the same light, whereas service providers, their switching is more revolving around bridging. It's all about providing switching services to their customers. So that's why we see the JNCISs. We have two different JNCISs here. It's because it all comes down to how these two different environments, really enterprise versus service provider, it's all about how they handle layer 2. Then when we get into the professional tier, that's where it breaks out, and then we have three options: data center, enterprise, and service provider. Okay, cool, I'm not covering it. So this is where we've got three options. So up until this point, if I write in blue, let's keep it in blue, CBT Nuggets has JNCIA Junos, JNCIA Junos, and we also have JNCIA DevOps. We also have JNCIS Enterprise. We also have JNCIS Enterprise. We also have JNCIS Service Provider. We also have JNCIP Service Provider, JNCIP Enterprise, and if I change the color, JNCIP Data Center is currently in progress, and I'd put it at around 66% completed. So I would expect to see this out relatively soon. I can't say for sure. It's hard to gauge these things. It's also hard to predict, like, are my kids going to get sick or anything like that. But I would like to see it released within the next 30 days. That would be my personal preference. If I'm giving myself a goal, I would like to wrap recording on all of this content within the next 30 days. Now, I reserve the right to extend that if I come across something where I say, ooh, I need more time to record more content for that. So that's what we're looking for here. Now, you see there's a whole lot of unchecked items here on the screen that we haven't recorded yet. And you may be thinking to yourself, are we going to do security? Are we going to do design? Are we going to do more DevOps? Are we going to do whatever? The answer is probably. I would absolutely love to knock out the entire security track by the end of this year. And if it's done on time, I would like to move into design. However, here's that Cisco announcement. We just internally launched SP Core. I know you're all really excited about that. On SP Core, I think we've got 3 trainers, myself, John McGovern, and a new guy named Dave. If you haven't checked out Dave's content, he's doing a lot of data center content right now. That's what it's shaping up to be. Like right now, again, things are very fluid. Don't have any timelines on SP Core just yet. To answer some questions that I know I'm going to get, yes, we're going to be using iOS as well as iOS XR. I would also like to do multi-vendor environments in general because that's what you see in service providers. That's why textbooks like MPLS in the SDN era exist, and they use multi-vendor environments. So ideally, that's what I would do. I am personally going to be covering some of the content in MPLS as well as MPLS traffic engineering and some VPN content. I think I'm doing layer 2 VPNs, but I'm not doing layer 3 VPNs. So that's what I think it's going to be shaping up like. That's, again, things like with this early in the stage, it's very fluid, but it has been launched. It is going to happen. So as soon as I wrap up recording JNCIP Data Center, I'm moving over to SP Core, and once that's done, I'll move down into security, and once that's done, I'll move over into design. So that is the exciting content that is underway at CBT Nuggets. Now, the cool topic, this is the one of the lab topologies that I'm using for the JNCIP data center. Specifically, this topology was used to talk about data center architectures and designs. Let me kind of duck my head a little bit. You can see I was kind of, in the video, I'm moving this security block around because we talk about the different designs, about how traffic can flow between different VNIs, or VLANs is kind of another way to think about it if you're new to this technology, or into and out of the data center. So how would traffic make its way through security appliances before it makes its way to servers or between VLANs or things like that? So that's what that video was all about. I really like talking about one particular topic, and that is EVPN. If you're new to EVPN, it seems intimidating because it's like E, and then there's more VPNs in general are intimidating to people who are new to the networking space, but they're fun. They're really, really, really exciting because it's like, it seems like we're doing magic. It's like when we deploy site-to-site VPNs, right, over the public internet, we've got 2 IPsec tunnels, and those private routes start going back and forth. It feels like we've tricked the internet into actually allowing our private sites and those private subnets to communicate with each other. VPNs are really, really cool like that. But the whole idea behind a VPN, right, is that we're really just building a tunnel on top of some physical topology. That's what a VPN does. And then we choose types of traffic to go over that VPN. Well, one of the things that you find out pretty quickly at the professional tier is that your concepts of VPNs, for the most part, for people who are new to the technologies and working in the space, they think of layer 3 VPNs. This is like the site-to-site IPsec tunnel. But layer 2 VPNs are also a thing. The idea here is that if I look at this topology and I look at all these things labeled leaves and all of these things labeled spines, the idea here is I actually have routed /31 interfaces on all of these links that you see. Every single link between a leaf and a spine is a /31 interface. But one of the problems that we run into then is that this server here may be on a subnet like 10.1.1.0/24, and this server over here may be on a subnet like 10.1.1.0/24, and they need to be able to communicate directly to each other. We know that if we're on the same subnet, we're probably in the same VLAN. That's a good assumption, and therefore we're in the same broadcast domain. So when this server wants to speak to that server, what do? They communicate using direct connections, unidirectional frames with MAC addresses. They go through ARP. Of course, there's going to be a little ARP resolution process, and then we've got unicast traffic communicating through frames. Now, in this scenario, if this server were to send its frame over to this leaf, would this ever work? No, because when we have layer 3 routed interfaces here, the broadcast domain stops. It's kind of like having a router there. That's the idea, is that we're kind of having a router there. So what EVPN and VXLAN combine to do is they actually build, let me clear the screen, they could actually build a tunnel like so, and when this device sends its frame inbound, destined towards this server, that frame would get tunneled inside of an IP packet, which gets routed through the topology like so, and then it gets the outside header gets stripped off, and then the frame can communicate like that. So you're used to sending maybe layer 3 packets over the public internet by taking a layer 3 packet and sandwiching another layer 3 packet on the end of it that the internet routes on. Well, now we're just taking a frame and sandwiching a layer 3 packet on the end of it that the core of our network routes on. That's just it. So when you think about EVPN-VXLAN, if in the most simplest form, the simplest way, and this is totally oversimplified, by the way, but nonetheless, actually, it's not that oversimplified. That kind of is how anyways. The idea here is, instead of just sandwiching a packet inside of a packet, we're stuffing another frame inside of a packet and then routing it through the core. That's it. I mean, that's really what EVPN-VXLAN does. And now, the way this really works is, if you imagine servers in a data center, these servers are really running just a ton of little bitty virtual machines, right? And if this is running an ESXi server and this is running an ESXi server, this is one of the big things that ESXi does, especially when it's managed in vCenter. It migrates these virtual machines back and forth all the time throughout the data center as it tries to balance out the load on each of the servers. So now these virtual machines can flow anywhere in the entire topology and still maintain the same connectivity because their frames are just tunneled from one server to the next. That's the whole idea here. Now, again, it does get a little more complicated in how it works, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, like, why is it broken down into EVPN-VXLAN? And didn't you say something about MPLS? How does this all work? Here's the real big spoiler. Shh, don't tell anyone. EVPN, at the end of the day, is iBGP. That's internal BGP, if you're new to BGP. And that's really it. I mean, it has some very specific nuancy things about how it works, but instead of sharing layer 3 prefixes throughout the entire topology, EVPN shares MAC addresses. So when this server sends its frame into leaf 3 learns that MAC address and then tells all of its neighbors, hey, if you want to get to this MAC address, if you receive a frame destined to this MAC address, send it over the tunnel to me. And host 2 would do the same thing. It'll send maybe an ARP request in, or a broadcast, or just some frame or something. Leaf 5 will learn about it, and it'll advertise the MAC address back. Guess what? Now, Both servers can communicate directly to each other because the leaves that they communicate on have now shared the MAC addresses. They could just go over the tunnel. But the cool thing, what have I done? Oh no. But the thing about this is EVPN, all it does is share MAC addresses. It does not actually build the tunneling mechanism that is used to transport the frames. It is not the tunnel. It is just a control plane for sharing prefixes back and forth. The control plane is what VXLAN does. VXLAN is the mechanism that builds the tunnels between them. Once it knows where the MAC addresses are and what the destinations are, it's what actually brings the tunnels to life. And it's a pretty clean way of doing it. VXLAN works really, really, really well in the data center where traffic moves east to west and virtual machines migrate all of the time, and therefore we need to update the MAC addresses all of the time too, all of the learned MAC addresses. This is why VXLAN really shines in the data center. But you may be asking yourself, like, wait, what did you say about MPLS? Well, here's the real kicker. In service provider technologies, they don't use VXLAN. They can use EVPN. Here we go. EVPN to learn their customers' MAC addresses from one site and then use MPLS to tunnel those frames throughout their entire backbone towards the other site. Check this out. This is a topology that we use in the JNCIP service provider content. And we see here that we have 4 sites for the customer lined up here. And we want them all to be able to communicate as if this is one gigantic switch. That's what we want to have. And how does the switch behave again? As a MAC address comes in on an interface, it learns that MAC address, and then it knows when reply traffic comes in, this is the interface it goes back out. That's how we want our service provider backbone to work. And EVPN can do that because a MAC address can come in right here on this router, and then it can share to all of these other remote routers, hey, that MAC address for that customer site lives off of me. But instead of using VXLAN to send this traffic throughout, because traffic could go in any which way, and it's not very often that we see machines migrating sites in this type of deployment, because that's the use case, it actually makes better sense to use MPLS with traffic engineering. That way we can control the exact flow of their traffic throughout our topology while also implementing things like bandwidth reservations, because that's kind of what service providers do at the end of the day, right? They sell you bandwidth. That's what they do. So EVPN can still maintain the control plane, but in this environment, it works pretty well with MPLS. So let's circle back to the old topology one more time. Now, if you have any experience at all with Cisco's DNA Center, and it's okay if you don't, but we did deploy a big course on it, talking about all the theories behind it, you've also seen VXLAN work without EVPN. What was the control plane used in the SD access fabric? The control plane was Lisp. And then there was a security plane that was Cisco TrustSec that was involved in that mix too. The point is that it shows you that this solution, EVPN-VXLAN, is very modular. And it just so happens that that combination works really well for the data center. There's different solutions and different combinations of protocols that work in other environments. That's why I think the JNCIP content is really worth your time. Even if these aren't technologies that you work with, why do I think you should learn it? It's the same reason why I think you should learn anything at all. It's because it's cool and it makes you a better network engineer, but mostly because it's cool. So that's why I would say, like, if you're new to EVPN and VXLAN, don't worry, we don't just toss you in the mud. We ease you into this process. That's kind of what the entire certification track for Juniper is all about. That's why they get you through 3 certifications up until the professional level. You go associate, then specialist, then professional as you grow into it, which is really, really cool. So keep your eyes peeled for the data center content that's coming out soon. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is kind of my little personal side project that I've got going on. I have always been super passionate about personal finance. I just always have been. I graduated in econ. I interned with a bunch of different personal finance organizations. Even did a little bit in some insurance work for when I first graduated from college. So it's always just been kind of a thing that I've always been interested in. Kind of ways to manage money and grow your wealth. But now that I'm in technology, I'm fascinated by cryptocurrency, how the different models of cryptocurrency work, what the different blockchains do, what problems do they really solve, and quite frankly, how can we make money off of it? One of the coolest things about finance in general is passive income. And when I say passive income, I mean you go to sleep, and when you wake up, there's money there waiting for you to collect. I think that's a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing. And I'm finding out that the new changes, the evolution of the cryptocurrency space, which I've been in since 2017-ish, 2018-ish, right around the collapse of the first collapse of Bitcoin, I'm starting to realize that these evolutions and these changes are really beneficial to people who are interested in passive income, dividends, and yield farming, and things like that. So I am going to create a new YouTube channel as well as a new Twitter account. The new Twitter account is already up. It is at Knox_trades. You can follow me now if you're interested in that. And my YouTube channel is going to be centered all around basically what I am learning as I go through this cryptocurrency journey. Now, just telling you right now, I am an amateur. Do not take anything I say as financial advice. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research when it comes to investing in anything at all, because risk exists, and cryptocurrency in general is pretty risky. I recently heard another YouTuber, a big name in the cryptocurrency space called Voscoin, said that 1 year in cryptocurrency is 10 years in other financial services products. And I totally agree with it, because it is a very volatile asset that goes up a lot, then goes down a lot, and you can either make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. And I've done a little bit of both. So I am creating this channel to tell you what I have learned. What are the products that I really, really enjoy using? The centralized custodial products versus the decentralized products, like the DeFi products that exist today. Credit cards that give you cryptocurrency rewards. I'm trying those out. It's really cool. And I've also learned a lot about mining in your home. That's kind of a big deal, because mining itself has changed. It consumes a lot of electricity. These ASIC miners, if you're a network engineer, you know the term ASIC, because that's what we talk about in our switches. Well, guess what? They've got ASICs for mining, and they consume a lot of electricity, and they're very, very, very loud. So my personal project that I'm taking in my house is, how can I give it a safe amount of electricity and also dial the noise down to where it's not deafening in the house? That is a personal project that I've got going on, and if you've seen the couple videos that I've released recently, you know that it's not going that well. So I've got more stock on the way so that I can try again later. To be fair, no, I think when this next batch of products come in, the next batch of miners comes in, I've got a solution that will actually work this time. I'm also working with a licensed contractor and electrician to actually get this thing wired up correctly. So we're going to be okay. I'm going to get to a solution that's going to be really cool, and I'm going to be able to tell you about all of the tasks that I had to go through, the expenses that were incurred with it, and hopefully help you set up some mining operations of your own. That way you can wake up the next day and just see how much money you made overnight, which is pretty cool. So this is going to be a little side project that I've got going on. Give me some time. It's going to be a completely separate channel. I took a poll on Twitter, and most people felt very strongly that the cryptocurrency and the personal finance stuff should be completely separate from the data Knox stuff, which I totally respect, and at a level I agree with that too. So that's going to be a separate channel. Keep your eyes peeled for that coming soon. And if you want to follow me now on Twitter, it's at Knox_trades, and that way you can see what I think about what's going on right now in the markets. So this has been my update. Thanks for stopping by, y'all. I'll see you in the next one.